Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. I am Dr. Contrast, and we are live. And Terrace, great to have you on board, man. Hope all is well at your end. It's so good to have you on board today, and I think it's going to be an interesting little session here today for Phase 5. Just a very brief introduction here. I think we've had a bit of a lull here between the holidays and getting information we sent away about a week or so ago. And we're going to go back today and do a couple little things here to kind of review some things, and then put together some pieces to show you some things that we've been looking at, and some of the interests I've been having, and really putting it all together, and I think we're finding it, and I think a good call today too is just kind of pull back a little bit, wait for some information coming in, so we don't really anticipate a lot of error in putting sketch running work or concept work for next program. I have some conversations, although really well pleased with the fact that the idea of having some very innovative looks at this process could be very, very intriguing to them. So that's a good sign. But I think I'd rather be much careful in terms of playing on the side of caution, just to be sure that we get the right direction and begin to feed that information back today. So I think today I'm going to go back and take us through a little bit of a genealogy here. It won't be a long program, but I want to spend some time going back in a little bit of review and getting some things taken care of there. Pardon me for a moment. Oh, there you go. Taking care of some things that I've been really thinking about over the last week since we were together last on this stream. So, Antares, feel free to fire away with any questions or concerns you might have, and issues and input. Fire away. It's always good to have you on board, and I'm grateful for the fact you just spent the time with us. This is the animal here we're looking at before we're going to review. This is the one we're looking at here. I'm still, every time I look at this thing, I'm still convinced that yes, it's a great tool, does a lot of neat things, but there's some real flaws in terms of scale, size, weight, all those things we talked about in the past few streams. And I'm really convinced too that I think we could take a lot of that information and really get most of this. Why can't that portion right there be condensed into someplace up and through here? Maybe the mass changes a little bit, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit more detail to it, but the handle graphics is coming as well. Why can't that become part of the handle, or that be reduced so you get this nice form or shape to simplify the form? So if we could see something in that area right there that has a little more romance to it and has some good innovative surface treatment to it, I think a very healthy approach. So it might be a little bit of a stretch. And my comment to the gang too, with the staff, was is there really a need for this large battery pack? Does the handle have to be that obtrusive? Yeah, they have to grip it, so I understand that. But can we get those pieces integrated? Can this and this, A and B, be integrated as a part of this and let this become more dominant? So that's where the challenge was, and I think, how do you feel about that, Antares? I mean, do you think that's a fair assessment? I'm just not sure. I mean, that's my approach, but I just want to see how you felt about the fact that there's a lot of weight there, there's a lot of handle mass, there's a lot of huge, that's really amazing. Why can't that become integrated into the body of the form? And that was my comment to the staff as well. Is there a way to get some form integrated into that barrel shape that we can kind of trim this thing down and make it much more flexible and a lot more adaptive for use? And then on that same note too, I have some individuals who are looking at the potential power sources. Can it go lithium? Get real lithium? Can it go solar? Can it go hydrogen? Who knows? There might be something out there that can kind of incorporate into the shape, into the skin of this thing, to give it more of a continuous power source as opposed to unplug it, plug it back in, unplug it, plug it back in. Seems to be very, very laborious to me. So I'm going to hold on here for a minute while I get things organized. What do you think, Antares? Is a possibility? Oh, there you go, got it. I think it's fair to say that there's scope of more elegant. Yeah, there's a more elegant solution, but do you think, just I'd like to get your input here, do you think that there's a possibility of getting this battery pack and that handle more integrated into that upper form, or eliminate one or the other, and this becomes part of that? That might be interesting too. That power source needs to have a source to generate it, so why can't they both be combined and make that into a very simple common portion of relegation? What do you think? Yay or nay? Am I throwing curveballs, or is this making sense? I don't know. It's a very abstract approach to it, I'm sure. But I think the right one. I think it's time to have, everything looks the same. Everything in the marketplace, they all look the same. Handle, battery pack, color change, graphic changes and so forth. But there's nothing really there that says, hey, this is really convenient to work with. Now, more about that in a moment. So what do you think there, Antares? I'll just hold on. I really appreciate your time being on the air today. And obviously your input is terrific as well. Very, very good. So again, a bit of a little bit. It's a strange. I think the holiday had to do with some of the feedback coming back and forth, but we'll get that clarified, I'm sure, this week and into next week to get more information on this thing. So as we do that, I think that's interesting. I'll bring this back in a moment here, just for what it's worth. This is the attack method here. This one we're going to really kind of try to facelift and make some really significant changes to it. Yeah, it makes sense depending on the ergonomics and and the physicality of it all. I think it is. I think that could be done. So let me put that aside for a moment here, and we'll just do this. This is where we started. Let's go back to that sketch right there. Antares and Dakota, from those empathic sketches, we this was a favorite of Antares. That was your study, Antares, and then this one was of Dakota. Both of them have a feature here that I thought were interesting. From that empathic sketch, what we saw was this piece up on top here was more of a sphere or a pivoting ball system that could literally change the character of the actual drill itself. I think that was healthy. And I just put that. This is an overlay from that empathic sketch. We just took some of the design lines and showed how the method works. Also, in Dakota, same case. This is much more of a spherical approach, but it had articulated head on it. This one would actually swing and move, as would this one. That would actually travel up and down. This one would actually travel up and down that flat area here and give you some flexibility and motion with the head. This one would actually pivot, could rotate, could go north and south and go east and west. So there's some good healthy processing in there, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to take off on that guy, and from that sketch, just for what it's worth here, from that study, we went from there. I'm going to put this aside here. The series of sketches, this is very interesting here, that with that same ball system here, looking at that whole idea with a very simple grip, maybe it's just like a round ring of some sort that you hold on to. I'm not saying this is the actual solution, but part of the process of thinking through it all. This was interesting, that and then this guy was out of the end, like the lonesome end itself. This would be the sphere that we got from Dakota's sketch and your sketch, Antares. So we actually put that in place. And this little thumbnail sketch here shows us that the actual home station is right here. This is home. And it actually pivots north and south by the compact look of this thing. You can actually turn it to the right and left and go east and west with it and not change the actual flexibility of being able to perform a function and get the drill to work a lot more efficiently. So once again, question, Antares, does this process seem to be valid? I think it is. I just want to get your input on it to reinforce this thing. Is it valid? Does it move? Can it travel on a track? Can it adjust? And if you hold it this in upper hand, for example, hand form like so, oh, there I am, like so, you can actually go into it or actually rotate your hand and rotate it, and you can work with north and south, east and west. Very interesting. So I'll hold on here for a moment, see what we come up with. So far, so good. I mean, this I think has been a really challenging situation in terms of really, really cool stuff about taking a chance and really risking going over the edge with, okay, we've got a drill in the marketplace. It's common. It's been saturated, but is there a new way to do this? And I think there's a way to do that as well. I think we're trying to see some things here that could really open up some doors for us. So, again, that whole motion system here to me is very intriguing. Maybe it's a minimal track, maybe it's just 3 stages, but at least it gives you flexibility. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but when you're trying to repair something, you get really have a hard time getting into the location you're looking for. So had that thing to move it and adjust would be really healthy. Oh, question, you got an answer. The one issue that strikes me is if the user able to effectively apply pushing force to drill through something in all orientations. But aside from that, yes, I think the mechanics of it seems. I think that's a good point. The upper statement there is really well stated, I think, Antares. The only issue that strikes me is if the user is able to effectively apply pushing force to drill through something in all direct orientation. I think that's a good point. I think there should be enough force in that to do that. And I think if this head, whatever the end of design product looks like, has that capability or the mass to it, I think that could be done. And I think even in a normal situation, if it does move, if it articulates, if it stays in home zero, which is right there, then you have enough force to push it forward and begin to move it or up or down. So I think that can be pretty applicable. So that sketch started from that empathy study. Then when I went from that study, I said, okay, if that becomes part of the process, when we looked at this guy, went to that page and just started to put together a series of what ifs. I mean, putting together a handle graphic with it, changing a little bit of character to it. I'm not opposed to, and I think this is not being selfish here, but from a personal point of view, I'm really not opposed to having a handle graphic on this, but my concern is, does this thing look too alien? Is it too bare bones for individuals to realize, oh, that's a stable looking head? Should this have some sort of shroud into it? Is there a head? Is there a better way to do the ergonomics? Does this have to be vertical? Can this be a little flatter so it's a lot more streamlined? Those are the things I'm going through in terms of working back and forth with staff, and I think from your input too, very interesting. This little thumbnail sketch I think I did last week when we got together. You saw a little thumbnail sketch that had basically, let me just share, I think that you had one that looked like this. I did a sketch that was basically this form. It was that form there, through a center line, and it actually came back and just did this. It was an almost parabolic curve. Then on the end of that, we had the actual drill fitting. Came off of that. Remember that little sketch we did? That was one of the studies we did. And I think from that study, this was done first, right here. I'm trying to keep this in order, some sort of symmetry here. This is the sketch that was done first. We went through a series of little passes, and it was a little bit complicated trying to get a handle to it. And I think Dakota made a comment too on that thing too about the fact the handle is going to be difficult to work with. So again, I think this has valid to it, a merit. Is it open or is it shrouded somewhere? Then we take that shape and come up over the top and shroud that, and then still have the ability to pivot and move. Is there a better way to handle this? Obviously, the mass is going to be pretty critical too, because we have some sort of a power source to make that work. This might take a little bit thicker, and I'll be working on some sketches once I get information from the gang about how to get that put together, and how to put that piece and that power source and that handle and grip system to make it functional, and hopefully we'll have some good input from that. So there's a sketch that did that, and again, once again, I don't know if you can see that in terrace. I don't know how hard this is. I did a sketch. It looked basically like this. I'm gonna beat this up, and that's just that, and it had a little bit of a power grip on it, and we just took that thing and just had a soft area in it like so, and that was all soft. This became the pivot point here, and the travel line was about from there to there. So I don't know if you remember that sketch, but you grip it like so, and you actually hand grip it, and it moves it in, and utilize it as a tool. That's a great question about the head looking alien. It needs to convey that it's a robust tool. Yeah, I agree. I think there's no question. It has to have some sort of captive area around it, make it look like it's actually a functional mechanical piece of equipment as opposed to an alien piece out there. So, very good point. So let's do this. So what I did after that little sketch, let me get these organized here, get them in the way. What I did after that series was this. Interesting thing we started with this whole concept of getting into things like biomimicry. And then, as I said in the very beginning of the stream, we started out with the process of looking at empathy to develop the process, to translate it into a tool with a line drawing. Then from there, we started to generate surface sketches and some little quick concept sketches to get things organized, to get that established. However, last week, we talked about doing some biomimicry to reinforce what the concept is all about. What I thought we'd do is say, you know what, if we take advantage of these innovative pieces, like it's again, could be very much in terms of the list we had here, was also power source can be critical, no question. Then you've got malleability. Can it move? Can you wear it? Is it adaptive? Is it ergo efficient? Can it rotate 90 to 180 degrees in the horizontal mode and the vertical mode? So those are the conceptual objectives that I think we're really working toward. But to make that really possible and much more magical from that whole concept of starting with empathy, last week I spent some time looking at things in the physical world using biomimicry. So I brought some samples along here today to look at this thing. I went to just a variety of insect world, some aquatic world, some other pieces to look at that might be applicable to the concept that we started here with this drill. Interesting about this one was this. Look at that mantis. Look at this shape right here. What really caught me about that was this. Here's the head form, but also this form right here. Does that become part of the process? Can that form, can that shape, this and this, begin to pinch or slide up and down as a handle graphic? Biomimicry. Can we use it? Can we use that insect as a part of a tool to describe the shape? And what really caught me off guard was this. When you put that together, look at this. And if you turn that thing, let's do this. Here's a line drawing here. Let's just turn this vertically for a moment. Look what happens here. That shape almost fits right in there. If you turn it around the other way, look at this. That nestles right in there like so. And if you rotate it a little bit more, look how that shape comes right into that form right there. That's interesting to me. Praying mantis neck actually looks stronger than I remember in my mind. Yeah, they're very strong in terms of really. But again, look at that module, that piece, that portion right there, and that area right there could support going into something like this. We rotate that in there. Again, a little bit beefier, added some of the bulk here, for example. But the idea here is, could that actually pinch in and move and slide back and forth to give this thing some more guts to it? So I thought that was interesting, the mantis. And even the one that Dakota did, again, same process. Look at this. Get that same thing, and you can actually get that form right there. Let me rotate here just a little bit. Just to turn it in high, inside. There's that match, but it kind of twists a little bit, but it was an interesting look at what was taking place from the idea of being biomimicry in terms of letting the nature of things work right through it. So the idea behind all that, for example, go back to the original sketch, which is here. There's the original up on top. If we took that, what if we did this, for example? What if we took that same shape and began to move this in? Let me just kind of work over the top of this thing. That form. If we did this, brought that shape up, brought into it, brought that module into it, and this becomes the area, for example, where you nestle that drill bit. Then again, this comes out of here, and you begin to pick up this same mass here. This opens up a bit, and look at that shape right there. Turn that back into itself, and then take that form off the back of this form, the head form, off the back, and then just drop this in and create some sort of a handle graphic that kind of gives you, it's very big, could be pinched in here, but again, even if it come up on top with this shape here, and just let that drop in, there's some things there that I think are really interesting. Yeah, inspiration, just seeing how it all comes together, how one shape, it just takes that little area right, that's what caught my attention here. Now, if that pinches in, you can actually move this, you can get bulkier with this and move that in and get much more mass, and then drop this down even more so, bring this up even further, and really create, and then an offset in this, and create a handle in through here. It could be kind of, that's the idea we're looking at here. That's why, to me, let me move this out of the way for a moment here. That's why biomimicry to me is really intriguing, because it does some interesting things. What do you think, Antares? Making sense? So I'm backing off a little bit here today. Since we don't have a lot of information from the staff, I thought we'd go back. Okay, empathy started it. Biomimicry might reinforce it. That's what we're looking at here today. Just in a pass, before we go into some real good, really sincere sketch rendering skills about input coming in from industry. Cool, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's an intermission. It's interesting. So there's a mantis. So that was one. I took the mantis. Then I took just an idea of a bee, for example. Pretty obvious. You've got this drill head here. There it is. And there's it here. You would have the same drill head here. Again, look at the relationship here, just for what it's worth. Just another way here. Look at that head, thorax, abdomen. Again, same with this guy. Same with the area right here. Head, thorax, abdomen. Same process. And same thing with the codas here. Go back the other way. There it is. With the head, right in through about right there. Head, thorax, and abdomen. Now that may have a little bit more mass to it, but I think that could really be interesting how it all comes together. And articulation which slides as well as rotates could open. Yeah, I think that's that. I think that. Let's go back to that just for a moment there. I think this adaptability here, this whole concept where this form here, this lower form. Maybe there's a way to actually take this guy and slide it back a little more, and then put beef in here. This portion actually slides up and down and gives you a little bit more grip reinforcement if you need it. And other elements to deal with as well. But again, I just thought it'd be interesting to go back to look at what biomimicry could help us and deal with it in terms of putting some really interesting things together. So, I mean, there's a lot of similar shapes here. It doesn't look that compact, but it looks more mechanical. And I think the key is if we shroud this thing, as opposed to being alien like this one sketch is showing us here. Instead of having this thing hanging out in the breeze, we actually trap it and get it inside, for example. Let me just do this. Let's move this one over here. If we take something, for example, let's go back to this little horizontal. If we did something like this, where you come back into here, then you've got this sphere, or the rotation portion in it, and you actually trap that off. And you come back into there. And then again, picking up that same concept, we actually roll this back, and roll this back. Then you cut back into it here by doing this. And this slides. That portion moves up and down. Then you come back into it and open this up just a bit more. Pretty conventional, but nonetheless. Then all this up on top could be graphics, actual power packet through here, and if we cut this off, there was the actual drill head right in through here, right about there. That could be interesting. It's a little bit more substantial. Not quite happy with the actual form itself, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It has to look functional. But again, this can come up. Why not this? Where that whole shape comes through here, opens that up, that eliminates this. And then this portion here is much more symmetrical. Maybe that floats like so. That floats, and there's a piece there that looks like this. And that process moves up and down that ladder, whereas this guy rotates and rotates. Pretty articulate. That could be fun. I mean, that could be really interesting. What do you think, Antares? Making sense? Pretty compact, but at the same time, again, all this would be meat for power source. Eliminate the handle, and it gets rid of that whole extension down here and that big pad down below. That just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Actually, this could actually come back in. Let me just change pens here. This could actually come back in and really track, more importantly, like this. If this is my new center line, that ball or that articulating could be up in there, much more compact. This is a guy that really gives you some flexibility. Gripping it, moving it, coming back. Interesting. What do you think? Yeah, that could be interesting. That's a good plus. I'm going to put a note on that. That's going to be interesting right there. That's cool. And again, this, on a smaller compact, this started it, Terrace. That was your sketch. You looked at this. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's at some variation in that. Maybe that shape does come off and opens up and I can blow my ass to it to get it done. So let's look at that. There was one. There was a praying mantis. The two of the bee, the same set, almost the same setup here. And the third one I looked at was a seahorse. This is interesting too. Let's look at that seahorse. Interesting, isn't it? So when you look at that same, was my sketch. Here it is. If I remember, look at that same sketch. All of a sudden, look at this. You've got, this is the form right here. This head form into that body form, and we kind of modify that as we go. Let me get this out of the way here. Let me get this up right there. We'll put that right there. Now, look what happens here. Isn't that interesting? Again, picking up that same color here, same contour, same head form, and again, putting more mass back into there. But again, that same basic gesture. If on the vertical, there it is. On the vertical, it looks like that. Could be very, very unique. And the same thing, we got the other side here. By using Dakota sketch, come back in and just nestle that in, and then you pick up, look at that shape, this form, that form right there is what I looked at and said, what if we did that? And we actually put that right in, look at that, that almost fits to a T. Look at that. Really interesting. Really interesting. So again, these guys, like this whole concept of biomimicry gives you some real, even if you did this, if you turn this thing the other way, and you turn it the other way, again, it still follows that same suit. It just comes in there so nicely. So adaptability, we have to make some changes to it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Nothing's going to be pure. You can't go from biomimicry right to translation in the product. But it gives you clues as to, are you on the right wavelength? Can you use that body form of a bio piece into a product piece? Absolutely. We're just showing you here how it operates. Let's put that aside for a moment. So that was the second one we did, the seahorse. Then all of a sudden, what about the nautilus? That would be kind of cool. If you took a nautilus, for example, there it is. That's the actual nautilus. Look at that form. Let me get this out of the way. Look at that form. It's that same overall round shape. There's a little shelf in through here. This is what caught my imagination. Right there is a shelf. And what if you took that shelf and cut it off and about right in through there? And what if we reduced this and almost domed it? It had a dome on it, and that came back to, now maybe put more mass into this, and that becomes your handle. Interesting. Look at that. So again, mass is kind of strange, but again, but the concept, I think the idea of, let's do this just for a moment here. If that became my issue, if this is off to one side, if that became the process, let's do this. If that became the process, look at this. How we really look at from the point of view of, it's very circular. Let me move this. I'll bring this over in a moment. Very circular. Has that little form, it kicks back in and does this, and then also comes back out, and that shape carries on. But if we change the form of that, a little more rounder with it, and we come back into this and pick up the rest of that same shape, roll this off, bring it back in again, soften that off at the base, and come back in through here and develop another softer dome into this, and out of that, masquerade the drill bit. Now we change the orientation quite a bit here, but nonetheless. And then again, that could be really interesting. Let me turn this off to one side here. There it is there. A little bit of grab. This floats. That would be a floater. Through here. And again, look at the relationship, that one shape, that to the other. There's the, if I put these together, I'm not sure if we can get it on the same screen, but nope, not really. But that whole idea of getting that same form of come in and roll in, let me just, let's use this guy for a second here. If I get this thing to just, if I take that same shape and extend it out and go bolder with it, and use that same form, there's my handle. If I come out of that thing with, now I pick up this little negative here, and I come back and I pick up this and roll that right off and carry that on through and get this shape out here. And let me do this. Hang on, excuse me, I'll be right back. Where is that? I'll get this. Forgot to grab this. Pardon me. Forgot to grab this early on today. It does this overlay. Let's do this. If I put an overlay on this thing, for what it's worth. If I come out of here with that shape, and I take this same form and I roll it out, and I extend it out here. And I come back and pick up this negative into here. Then again, pick this up. Then from here, there's my captive area where the ball and socket is. Drill bit. And again, this can come up and just pick up a really nice form here to complement that shape. And this all becomes maybe grip. So, let me move that side. But again, look at that. From the Nautilus. Hey, hi Dakota, how are you? Good to have you. Everything, sorry for, no, not a problem, Dakota. How have you been? It's good to have you on board here. But look at that. There's the Nautilus in translation. Now, does this open up a bit more and become more of a hand grip? Does this actually move as well? Does the whole head move? Those are the things that I think are great about biomimicry. And again, Dakota, we're just going through an explanation of where we are. We're a bit of a lull in the bombing from information coming back in from the system. So I thought I'd go back a little bit review and go back and reinforce some of the things we've been talking about here earlier. And again, it's so interesting, for example, that I'll come back to this in a moment. I just want to bring it back up to speed here. Let's do this. I'll get my stuff out of the way here. What we're looking at are elements of biomimicry, for example, and I started off with a praying mantis, where you have this praying mantis. It's kind of a neat deal where was I? Here it is. I went back at the start of the program, Dakota, with these are the original sketches we did from the empathy studies, those two. This was Antares' selection, this was yours. I went back into biomimicry and looked at some insect worlds, some aquatic world, and so on, variations of themes on how to begin to put this stuff together. Yeah, so now, when we come back in here, now, what I did, I took this overlay, and I took this praying mantis and said, okay, what if I did this? What did I do with that sheet of paper here? Yeah, let's do this. What if I took that praying mantis? I'll do this again for us. What kept me here was this, that what got me here, it was this whole concept running through here, Dakota. Very interesting, because your sketch, your original sketch was like that. This one. If I took your study and laid it in there, look at this, how that thing just all of a sudden, the whole concept of getting that shape, this is upside down, getting that shape to nestle in there, look at that, how that falls right into place there between those two legs. Now you'd have to be able to spin this thing around, for example, rotate it here, and do the same thing with it, but look at how that fits, just coming right back in there. Now the body mass would have to change, but the idea is there, and at the same time, from your point of view, look at this. Your study right in there. Look at that. Just nestled right inside that shape and brought it right through. I just lifted that up. We could rotate it a little bit. It fits right in there. Look at that. That is really cool how that all came together, right? So what I did was, from that point of view, took this piece and where am I here? Right here it is. So what if we did this? What if we took that same shape from this mantis and we did the following here? Let's just kind of put this up. If this is our theme here, and we kind of put that together, what if we looked at that whole idea of get that head in place here, and dropped it down, and brought this in, and then it came right back and opened this thing up, and just got really interesting here in terms of just a nice form, full shape, and then again picking up that leg form, run that through, and then open that up into some sort of a system where it's a handle it now. Now this could be reduced to like we can actually come back and further that in, and then get that whole ball system up front to look at. But again, much more compact, much more a fluid-looking process here. So that's what I'm trying to do here today. Just give you some sort of relationship as to where and how this biomimicry stuff has really worked for us. It's been great. So I'll put that off to one side for a moment. So I started with the mantis, put that aside, and went to the seahorse. I mean, look at this thing. It actually sits right in the on the form. Your shape. This is what you selected here. I think this is Antares, and this is yours. Look at how that form fits right in there. Really cool, Dakota. That's your sketch right there. And then we just kind of laid that in there. But again, alter the top. This could kind of pivot back a little bit if we need to do that. That's kind of neat. But that shape right there almost marries right into that form on that seahorse. Same thing with Antares. Again, we picked up the same flat right here. This was a very strong design line here. And we put that axis on there and put that head in there. Look at that, how that all of a sudden falls right into place again. So these cues are becoming really interesting in terms of giving us more input as to how to begin to deal with this whole idea of getting this new innovative drill system that has an articulating head and maybe a malleable body or change it, but to get the whole thing to compact itself. And again, sort of be jumping back and forth here, gang. But what I really want to look at here is it started a program. We need to get somehow to get this guy, battery pack and handle integrated in this body of form up here. Is there any reason? My question to the staff was, is there a way to compress this and this to get into that body form? Not open up a little bit, might lengthen a little bit, but at least it's going to give us less of that really heavy look in the process. And I think that's what these biomimicry sketches are also helping us to do. So let me stop right there. Dakota, am I making sense? Just going to get your input here. I really appreciate it. Good. Don't worry about being late. I'm just glad you're back on board again. It's great. Antares, any commentary? I mean, about a bit of the bombing here. I'm just going through some of the things. That's amazing, intriguing to me how you started a process like this in a product design, where I started beginning with empathy, and you guys have been great to give me input in terms of putting it all together. Then you go from empathy into biomimicry and see how the relationships work with some of the feeling the character we're dealing with the adjustable head, very malleable looking form, and a new way of gripping it, new power source. Interesting. So very cool. We put that aside right there for a moment. And the last one I looked at was this guy right here. This is interesting. Again, another nautilus. Let's put that out of the way. Another nautilus. But again, look at that shape. I mean, it's almost tailor-made. If I were to take this form right here, that shape right there, and soften it off, and then brought it back in and drop it in, and I mean drop this in, all of a sudden you've got a whole new look at this thing. I've got enough room in this shape wrong. Oh, let me do this. I kept this with me here. Pardon me as there we are. If we took that same form again and did an overlay on this thing, you gotta memorize. Here it is. There's the actual form itself. Let's get that shape in here. Let's run that in. Run that in. Let's stop that right there. Now notice the little eyeball here. That could be a knob control to change or adjust the grip. That grip can come up and do this. Now we take this form and just shrink that whole area here and get that thing to sit in. And this is cap plated and trapped. And also gives us a point of reference where that drill head can be. Now, let me move that up to one side here. Look at that. I mean, this could be a control button. That actually, let's do this. Let's go right here. Let's go back and get this and put this in the right place again. This actual control buttons could begin to do this. That could come off and begin to spin in and do this. That's interesting. Where this whole piece, this whole section right here, actually moves and rotates off the body form. This could come back on itself and repeat itself here. Let's go back and modify that shape. Reduce it down even more so. And again, blend that right into that. I mean, look at the variations of that theme right there from, whoops, this Nautilus. There it is. Wow, fun stuff. Oh, some interesting avenues. Yeah, thank you very much, Dakota. And interesting in terms of you guys set the stage. You and Antares have set the stage. You selected the empathy studies. We overlaid them. We tuned them in. We did some sketch work. We did some what-ifs. And now the what-ifs are coming down to, now the pretty certain aspects of the design ratio we look at here. But I tell you, I'm just absolutely totally enthralled by the fact that some of this biomimicry stuff, get my hands to work here, it'll be good. There we are. Okay, let's put these aside for a moment. These are rough sketches, but they're themes and looking at how to refine certain things. If we took those studies right there, if we took those studies, this came from the mollusk, and again this, I mean, just a really interesting, and if you turn them right to vertical, still working. That goes vertical, then turn this around and go vertical, it still works. It's the idea of being extremely flexible in terms of letting the idea become much more magnified in terms of, oh, this could be a neat feature. This, we can adjust to this, we can adjust to that. There's always going to be that fluidity in the process when you go from one step to another. So I'm really delighted at the fact that we're making some great progress. We've gotten some good feedback. I don't know if you told, you might have heard it from the beginning of the stream, Dakota, that we had a lot of good feedback, conversation feedback from the staff. A lot of great, that's interesting. A lot of, that could be possible. Those are healthy things. And I put a little bit of a break on the program today because I didn't want to get into a situation where we start doing a lot of conceptual work without some input from them about yes or no, yays and nays. Much more direct and much more streamlined, and we get this thing down to resolution. So I'm hoping this week we'll get some really good impact on where we're going to go with this thing. But I'm convinced, and you can help me out here, both you, Dakota, can really help me out. Head for rotation, thorax for sliding, abdomen for, I think that's great. That's exactly it. You hit it right on the money, Antares. Thank you for being much more efficient with your conversation than I was. The head for rotation, the thorax for sliding, and the abdomen, user to hold. Great, that's the formula, and it's been much more, and it falls into place. Limitless, absolutely. Limitless creativity. I think that's a great point, Dakota. That, from the very beginning, I think you'll agree with me, in our conversations in weeks gone by, has been our whole premise for putting this together. That it's a disruptor. It changes the innovation. It changes the character of the marketplace. It has to, because everything else is so common out there. These are things that can be very monumental in terms of time to come once we start developing more of the sketch work. And by the way, developing sketch work, I'll be bringing in a whole bunch of sketches next week if I get some impact, and we're going to go through them and get your input on those sketches as well, and see where we take this thing. But I think that's an excellent, really great header there. It's the head, rotate, thorax for slide, abdomen for use. There it is. So I think that should be part of the package. I've also been thinking about some potential names should it come to pass with our approach in the overall completion and directing the design. I do think it ought to come down to, I would love to have that articulating head, a head that moves both and trapped, it goes, it says, north and south and east and west. That could be a very applicable. 2, a body that condenses or integrates the battery and the handle grip. That'd be the power source. Then 3rd, some sort of a nice complementary grip system that makes it look like a much more mechanically looking sound tool. Beautiful. What do you think, gang? So far so good? Helping? And I gotta go back to this sketch here too. I think this is one that I kind of put together here, and that was a whole page of studies from last 2 weeks ago. When we started looking at this whole idea of putting the whole idea of like a rotating head and a power body and a grip system behind it all, my comment in the beginning, Dakota, to bring up the speed was, this was an interesting concept, But something about it, for example, it looks too alien. It didn't look really gutty looking. It didn't substantial like a power tool should look like. But when you start to take that same theme and begin to integrate it into some of the shapes that we're doing, for example, like some of these, where this comes in, let's just use this for a moment here. Where this comes in and traps it, this would be, this all where, this whole portion here, let's do this in red, this whole portion will be trapped. That sphere will sit inside there. So that's got some sort of, now that'll still give you the flexibility of maybe 90-90 and 180-180. It still has a possibility of going up and down, which is going to be good, but it's trapped. It doesn't look like an alien. And you can actually come back and begin to put more guts into this thing too, so it's much more mechanical looking. But I really like the fact that it's a sphere. Really interesting sphere so far. I think that could do it. Anyway, on we go here, gang. Lots of fun, and again, as I said in the beginning of the stream, in a sense, I mildly apologize for not being able to go a little further, but again, I want to reinforce the fact that I'm not going to really go into a situation without their input in terms of, yeah, this could be, or that, no, they might have another approach too in terms of, yeah, this is great, have you tried this? This is interesting, but maybe not so much that, but those are the things that are going to be very vital for us to move ahead this thing. So I'm hoping by next week, we'll have some real good solid concept work, and if I get it early, I hope you won't forgive. I hope you will forgive me that if we get some input early, I'm going to start doing some sketches on this stuff to see what your feedback is. So I really appreciate the time here today. And Dakota, glad. You've been very busy. You're doing a lot of work at home or a lot of job work. So far, so good. Have you been doing any sketches, Dakota? Because if you are, man, feel free to send them along. I'd be more than happy to help you look at them, give us some feedback and input. So you as well, Antares. Great stuff. So what do you think today, guys? Make some progress as far as biomimicry and the relationship between bio and empathy. Those are the things that I think we want to highlight today and reinforce about the creativity process. It's just not a matter of just throwing darts at the board. There's some real rationale behind the thinking here, and I think the thinking is proving out to be a very, very, very dynamic direction for us to look at here. So I'll hold on for a moment here. Any commentary work? You've got it? Great, and we'll go from there. Super. I hope those of you are viewing too. I should have maybe taken a little bit of time to go back and review some things here, to go back a few steps, which I try to do a little bit here, but then maybe in the future we'll get it all put together here. So but maybe next week we can start from from the beginning and scratch through some things and take off in a new direction once we get it. Dakota, question here. I've actually been working on a sculpture sketch for us. Oh, good deal. 3D sculpt, the 3D product sketch, or just a fine art sketch, or what is it? You don't mind me asking, Dakota. That's pretty cool. Very good stuff. Glad to see you're still active with the portfolio, putting it all together. Then I think I mentioned some time ago when we first had you on board here, if there's any point in time, Dakota, where you need a letter of recommendation of some sort from my end of it, then you as well, Antares, but we're happy to do that. I'll do it in an instant. So you don't know how much I appreciate both of you being on board here today. It's been absolutely terrific to have you. Very good input in terms of what I'm saying. You're either saying, yeah, that's good, or you're saying, no, it would be very costly about that. The input is invaluable. It's not a one-man show, not at all. It's highly interactive. That's the way I wanted it to be. When I started Dr. Contrasted, I wanted it to be a two-way street where we actually work back and forth on teaching systems, conceptual design systems, sketch rendering processing work, and so forth. They're really helpful. Let's see, and Tara, looking forward to how things develop and enjoy the following. Oh, yeah, it's great. It's a clay model for my idea of a Formula One car. Oh, right. Oh, you got that. If it's not proprietary, I'd love to see that one. That's pretty cool. Good for you, Dakota. Nice. Keep me posted, both of you. And again, I'm going to wrap it up here today. There's not much more I can kind of fill in with here. The object today was to very simply go back and review a little bit from Empathy, where we started, some of the overlay work, some of the translations, and into some of the systems, for example, looking at both empathy and how biomimicry help to reinforce the empathy. So the two work together. So we've got some good feedback on two worlds here that are extremely dynamic and creative. Now next week we'll be able to put those two together with some pieces coming in from industry, and we'll take this thing in a direction where we'll get some final resolve. But I do think, in closing here, my preference would be, this is just individually speaking, my preference would be an enclosed sphere, a simple body, and then also a very, very dynamic grip form. And again, your comment was great, Terrace. That's the key. And head for rotation, thorax for sliding, abdomen for the user to hold. Beautiful. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, really well done, gang. I hope you have a great week. If you have a moment, take a look at my website, drcontrast.com. Any information, for example, you want to send along, please send me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. I'll be glad to help you any way I can as time moves on here. And I really do hope that we get some good feedback this week, and I'll keep you posted as we go. And looking forward to seeing you the same time next week, next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And I hope all of you have a great week. Take care of yourself, and thank you so much. And I always close with this because it comes from the bottom of my heart, and I mean it sincerely. Never forget to dare to remember, to dare to be great, because you are. Thank you, gang. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.